السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I praise Allah and thank Him, and I ask Allah to send His praise, peace and blessings upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions and those who follow them in excellence until the Day of Judgment. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me to be able to study in Medina and to submit my PhD thesis. Alhamdulillah, I was able to study in the College of Sharia and then do a master's in Fiqh and a PhD in Fiqh. And Allah blessed me to be able to study with the ulama of Medina, the scholars of Medina. And people always, the students who come when we get together, always ask me about how to seek knowledge and what are the keys to knowledge. And they hear so many different things and they see so many different classes, they see so many different books, see so many things online. And there's so much going on, whether in the city or on the internet, or hundreds and thousands of books and hundreds and thousands of lectures. So they get confused, where do I begin, how do I start, and how do I tread the path of scholarship and knowledge? So alhamdulillah, we've had many discussions with the students regarding this, and this is what I always recommend to students. It is called at-ta'sil al-ilmi. At-ta'sil al-ilmi, how to have foundation, how to build a foundation in the sciences of Islam, how to build a foundation in the ulum al-shar'iyyah wal-Arabiyyah, the sciences of Islam and Arabic. And inshallah, in this episode, I will try to break it down, and it might need several episodes to go more in depth, but I will try to give the most important points to explain to any student who wants to study the Sharia, who wants to study Islam, and who wants to know the path of scholarship, how it's done. Now, it is not an easy matter. It will take work. It will take a lot of hard work. It's not going to be by reading a few books or reading a few articles or listening to a few lectures. That is not the way at all to tread the path of scholarship and to gain ta'sil ilmi, foundational knowledge. Rather, it will require a lot of work and dedication learning Arabic, memorizing the Quran and a lot of the mutun that the scholars have written, and understanding them properly, and following a step-by-step method in the different Islamic fields. It takes many years, but it will bring its fruit, and this is the way that the scholars of the past have followed, and there is no other way that I know of that can bring about scholars. So let's begin with the issue of seeking knowledge. How do we begin? I'm not going to talk about the virtues of knowledge. I'm not going to talk about the beauty of gaining Islamic knowledge and so forth. I'm going to go straight into how to study. First and foremost, the most important thing, after having ikhlas and a sincere intention to seek knowledge, a person must study the Arabic language. If they do not know the Arabic language already, they'll have to go through a program which teaches them the Arabic language, the classical Arabic language, as well as a bit of the modern Arabic language. And there are many programs and curriculums written, like Al-Arabiya Bayna Yadayk, the Medina program, and different other curriculums and programs. You will need a good teacher, and you will need to follow this program until you reach a level of mastery or close to mastery, so where you're almost equivalent to an original Arabic speaker. This might take 2 years if you study hard. This might take 3 years. In terms of time and your constraints and your abilities, that differs from person to person. But you have to go through a strong Arabic program and take it very seriously that you learn the Arabic language and you strengthen all skills, from vocabulary to grammar to listening to speaking to writing to reading. All of these skills are very important, and it will continue with you. You will continue developing these skills as you learn Islamic sciences. But you do not want to get into the serious studies of Islam until you have mastered or are close to mastering the Arabic language, where you can listen to, for example, a lecture by an Arabic, a Muslim scholar, and understand it 100% or 90 plus percent. This is where you want to get to. You might have a difficulty with one or two or three words, for example, but you won't have an issue. You want to get to the level where you can be reading any classic book in Islam, whether it's in tafsir or hadith or aqidah or fiqh, and at least understand the modern commentaries or some of the classic commentaries. So you want to be able to reach that level where you can read correctly and listen and understand, and you're able to write and take notes and so forth. You cannot underestimate this stage, and this will determine how strong you'll be able to be in the Islamic, in studying the Islamic sciences. So Arabic is the key, and your strength in Arabic is the key. A lot of students don't take this time, the time when they study Arabic, too seriously, so they're weak in Arabic and they struggle as they continue their Islamic studies. So take your time studying Arabic and mastering it, and it will always be to your advantage. After that, after studying Arabic, you want to break the barrier of memorizing. And if you're able to break that barrier of memorizing while you're studying Arabic, that's even better. So if you're studying Arabic full time or close to full time, and you're able to start memorizing with a teacher and reviewing what you memorize, that would be amazing. Breaking the barrier of memorizing and not fearing memorization of anything is very important. A lot of people from the West are afraid to memorize. They say, I can't memorize, only Arabs can memorize. It's so hard. I've tried to memorize the Quran or tried to memorize and it's difficult. I can't retain it, and so forth. Most people are able to memorize, whether it's Quran or any other texts. It's just that they have to break the barrier, follow a systematic method of memorization and review, and be continuous and consecutive, and not stop. And the first thing a person should memorize is the Quran, as well as some of the adhkar of the morning and the evening, of the different adhkar that are found in books like Hisn al-Muslim and other books, and al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyah, the 40 ahadith or 42 ahadith of Imam al-Nawawi, along with the additions of Ibn Rajab. These are foundational ahadith that a person must know, and these adhkar a person must know, and a student of knowledge should never doubt that he must and should memorize the entire Quran. And it can take 2 to 4 years depending on how fast you memorize. The point is not how fast you memorize. The point is memorizing systematically with mastery. Even if you memorize half a page or a third of a page in the beginning, and increase slowly, but your review is always strong, and you're reviewing daily with a teacher or with a student in a class or a halaqah until you finish and until you keep up that memorization. While you're memorizing the Quran, or while you're memorizing the adhkar, or while you're memorizing Arba'in Nawawiyah, you want to use that opportunity as well to increase your Arabic vocabulary. So when you memorize half a page of Quran, you will try to take those words in the Quran and understand their meanings in English at least. So for example, Alhamdu Lillahi Rabbil Alameen, you'll know what Al means. What is Alhamdu? Hamd, Al-Lam, Li, and Lillah, Allah, Rabb, Al-Alameen, and so forth. Word for word translation of everything you are memorizing, and then the general meaning. So word for word of Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and the general meaning, all praise is due to Allah, for example. When you do this throughout the entire Quran, you'll build a lot of vocabulary which will help you later on as you're learning Arabic and as you study the Islamic sciences. Likewise, when you study the 40 hadith of An-Nawawi or the Adhkar in Hisn al-Muslim or any book of Adhkar, you will memorize each dhikr that you do or each hadith that you do, that you memorize, you will understand every word that you're memorizing and the general meaning of the hadith or the dhikr. So breaking the barrier of memorizing and realizing that as a student of knowledge, you will have a time in your day where you will be memorizing something and reviewing until for the rest of your life. It doesn't end because you have the Quran, and then you have the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Then you have these short mutun, beginner texts called mutun in the various Islamic fields. And then you have advanced mutun, which are longer Islamic texts in the various Islamic fields. And then you have Arabic poetry, which is also important and strengthens your Arabic and your understanding of the Quran and Sunnah. But in a systematic way and prioritizing what's most important, a student of knowledge will begin with the Quran and begin with memorizing along with it the Adhkar of Hisn al-Muslim and the 40 hadith of An-Nawawi. While they're learning Arabic or after they learn Arabic, preferably if they can do both at the same time and use the memorization of the Quran and memorization of the Adhkar and Arba'in Nawawiyya as a way to strengthen their Arabic, that would be ideal if they are able to. If they're unable to and they need to study Arabic first and then begin a memorization program of the Quran and the Arba'in Nawawiyya and the 40 hadith, that's fine as well. After a person finishes that stage, and it might overlap with a person's studies, but preferably a person can get that out of the way so that they can after that review and focus on gaining ta'sil, foundational knowledge. So here a person now learned Arabic and they memorized the Quran and know word for word meaning of the words of the Quran and Arba'in Nawawiyya and the Adhkar. Now they are going to get into the Islamic sciences. The Islamic sciences are of two types, maqasid and ulum ala. Maqasid are goals in and of themselves. So learning the Quran and its meaning is a goal. Learning the ahadith and their meanings is a goal in itself. Learning the rules of fiqh is a goal. Learning the rules of or the aqidah is a goal. Inheritance is part of fiqh. It's a goal. The adab, the etiquettes and manners of a Muslim and so forth is a goal. As for the ulum al-ala, which are tools that help you understand and help you understand the language of the ulama and give you the tools to be able to arrive at a conclusion and be able to derive a rule or to know the stronger opinion, these are called ulum al-ala. And in Arabic we have, for example, al-nahu, Arabic grammar, and i'rab, al-sarf, which is morphology and how the word changes into different formats. One word like hamida can have so many different words. The past tense, the present tense, the future tense, the subject, the object, and so forth. All of this is studied in sarf. So you have hamida and then hamid and mahmud, hamida yahmadu hamdan, and hamid and mahmud, and muhammad, muhammad, and so forth. You have all of these different forms of a word, whether it's فعل ماضي, مضارع, أمر, مصدر, اسم فاعل, اسم مفعول, اسم زمان, اسم مكان, and so forth, which help you expand your understanding of the Arabic language, and that one word becomes 50 words all of a sudden through sarf. You have balagha, Arabic eloquence, studying the sciences of eloquence in the Arabic language, a very important uh, subject that is studied. Arabic vocabulary. There are books for building your vocabulary, giving you synonyms, giving you the most important words to memorize and so forth. There's a whole program for that. Imla, how to write properly in Arabic, because sometimes it's difficult with the rules of Hamza and the rules of Alif and so forth. A student needs to understand the rules of writing in Arabic correctly. And we see uh, mistakes from even adults in writing Arabic because they don't know the basic rules of Imla or how to write properly in Arabic. They might be able to write, but when it comes to the Hamza at the end or in the beginning, they won't know where to put it, or in the middle. Uh, we have also the poetry, which helps, Arabic poetry, which helps uh, the student understand the Quran, the Sunnah. The companions and those after them used to memorize a lot of poetry. Aisha radiallahu anha used to memorize thousands of lines of poetry because this would aid them. This was their culture, and this would aid them in understanding the Quran and Sunnah because they came in the highest forms of eloquence of the Arabic language. So these are some of the sciences in the Arabic language which aid a person in studying Islamic sciences. The stronger you are in Nahu and Sarf and Balagha and Arabic vocabulary and so forth, you'll have less of a hard time understanding the ulama, especially when they speak about these issues, or when the ayah or the hadith or the ruling has to do with the meaning of a certain harf, ila or an, the ba, for example, or a nahu rule or a sarf rule or a balagha rule. These come up a lot in tafsir, they come up a lot in the commentaries of hadith, they come up a lot in commentaries in aqidah and fiqh. A lot of the Arabic language and a lot of the Islamic sciences, a lot of the different opinions go back to the Arabic language, whether it's nahu, sarf, balagha, vocabulary, and so forth. So these are all tools that help a person learn and understand and be able to strengthen themselves as they tread the path of scholarship. The knowledge of usul al-fiqh is very important because it helps a person derive a ruling correctly. Anytime you hear a dalil in the Quran and Sunnah, to derive a ruling correctly, you have to use a principle from the principles of usul al-fiqh, whether you realize that or not, and whether the scholar who says so is mentioning that rule or he's not mentioning it and it's well known to them. Every single ayah, every single hadith, if you want to derive a rule correctly from it, you need a principle from usul al-fiqh. These are the principles that allow you to correctly derive rules from the texts. A lot of these rules go back to the Arabic language. A lot of them go back to Islamic principles that are set. And it is a very important science. The stronger you are in usul al-fiqh, the stronger you will be in learning the evidences and how a rule is derived from those evidences, knowing if there's a difference of opinion, what's the stronger opinion and why it's the stronger opinion. I cannot underestimate the importance of usul al-fiqh. A person should not be able to speak regarding the Sharia and Islamic rulings and derive opinion or give a stronger opinion or any of that unless they have mastered the science of usul al-fiqh in theory and in application. And the stronger a person is in usul al-fiqh, the stronger they will be in fiqh. Otherwise, they will be stuck in taqleed, in the realm of taqleed, following a scholar that they trust and following their proof that they use as proof. They will never be able to properly know which opinion within a madhab or outside of a madhab is stronger because they don't have the tools. It's very simple, and this is something that is well known amongst all scholars, and there's no doubt about this amongst the scholars of Islam. Another important ilm or science in Islam is the science of Hadith. The science of Hadith, which helps a person understand the language of the scholars of hadith when they consider hadith authentic, sahih or hasan or da'if or mawdu', authentic, hasan or weak or fabricated and so forth. They have a very intricate and meticulous language and meticulous rules to be able to distinguish between authentic and inauthentic hadith. The science of hadith deals with this, and if a person has a decent understanding of it, they will understand the scholars of hadith. And if they go into a higher level study of hadith, they themselves will be able to give rulings on a hadith and choose the stronger opinions amongst the scholars of hadith and read their research, whether it's earlier scholars like Ad-Daraqutni, Imam Ahmad al-Bukhari, or يعني scholars like Ibn Hajar and al-Dhahabi and Ibn Kathir, or later scholars such as Sheikh Ahmad Shakir or Sheikh al-Albani or other scholars of hadith. May Allah have mercy on them. So if a person has the science of hadith well understood, they can understand first what the scholars of hadith are saying. Second, if there is a difference of opinion amongst the scholars and they've reached that level, they'll be able to choose the stronger opinion regarding the hadith's authenticity. And third, if they reach even a higher level, they'll be able to produce their own rulings on a hadith. Even though they must benefit from the scholars of the past and what they have said regarding the hadith, but they will be able to reach that level of scholarship of hadith if they study enough and they study properly the science of hadith and they practice it enough. Now, these are the sciences, the main sciences of Islam. Of course, there's inheritance law that is written by itself, and there is when it comes to fiqh, the mutun of the madahib of fiqh, they start with beginner mutun that just mention the rules according to one of the four madahib, and then they have intermediate books for an intermediate student and advanced books that only mention rules, and then there are books that mention the proofs for these rules, and then there are books that mention the difference of opinions within one madhab, and there are books and their proofs, and there are books that mention the difference of opinion amongst all the madahib and mention their proofs and the proofs of the other madahib, and there's a whole debate, an academic debate that goes on in these books of higher khilaf, where they mention the difference of opinion amongst the ulama. So for example, in the Hanbali madhab, you have a beginner book like Umdat al-Fiqh or Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat. You have an intermediate book like Dalil al-Talib or Zad al-Mustaqni' or Umdat al-Talib, and you have an advanced book like Al-Rawd al-Murbi', Muntaha al-Iradat, and even more advanced like Al-Iqna', which mention pretty much rules. And then you have books that mention the Adillah like Al-Kafi by Ibn Qudama, and the difference of opinion amongst the madhab like Al-Muqni' and the Adillah of the madhab like Al-Kafi. And you have the higher, the difference of opinion within the madhab like Al-Insaf. And then you have books that mention the higher khilaf amongst the four madhahib and the other scholars outside of the four madhahib like Al-Mughni by Ibn Qudama. So the smallest book is about one volume and has 1,500 masail or issues of fiqh that are discussed. And the biggest book by Ibn Qudama, rahimahullah, is a 14-volume masterpiece, an encyclopedia of fiqh. And you can say the same in all of the other four madhahib and the other books of fiqh as well that are outside of the four madhahib. Then you have with the madhahib, along with the madhahib, you have the usul of that madhahib, usul al-fiqh. You have qawaid fiqhiyya books, fiqh maxims that deal with that madhab's principles of fiqh or maxims of fiqh, which are also very important after studying a madhab to study those fiqh principles or fiqh maxims or al-qawaid al-fiqhiyya. You have the ulum al-Quran, tajweed, and the qira'at, and usul al-tafsir. All of these are different sciences. You have mantiq, logic, which comes a lot in aqidah and in usul al-fiqh. You have adab al-bahth wal-munadara, the etiquettes of debate and research in Islam and in the Islamic sciences, a very important science. You have Sirat al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from small, short poems that are memorized, and then intermediate texts and higher texts and more advanced texts. So you always have in all of these fields a beginner book, an intermediate book, an advanced book. Now, what a student wants to do is start taking one metin at a time and memorizing it and understanding it with a teacher. And a person might say that's so much and that's so difficult. And we forgot to mention Aqidah. Of course, it has its own books and mutun that are basic, intermediate, advanced, and then encyclopedic books and refutations. A person wants to start studying the small mutun, going through a small metin that they memorize, which is a small text in the different sciences. So they'll, for example, start off with Nahu, with a book like Ajrumiya or the poem of Ajrumiya, and then in Sarf they can start with Bina al-Af'al, in Balagha they can start with Mi'at al-Ma'ani or Al-Jawhar al-Maknoon, or in Usul al-Fiqh, Nadm al-Waraqat or al-Waraqat, and in Usul al-Tafsir Muqaddimah, في أصول التفسير by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, or the Muqaddimah of Ibn Juzay's علوم التسهيل, which is his tafsir. The Muqaddimah is in علوم القرآن, a very beneficial book in علوم القرآن. In Aqidah, they can start with the shorter mutun in Aqidah that they'll memorize and study. For example, أصول الثلاثة or Kitab al-Tawheed, and then Aqidah al-Wasitiyya, and Lum'at al-I'tiqad, and then al-Tahawiyya. These are all books that are to be studied in a certain order. In fiqh, you have a short method like Umd al-Fiqh or Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat that you would just study and understand, memorize and understand that book without going deep. So when you do that with all the different sciences we mentioned, that level 1, and you memorize it and you go through a basic, simple sharh with a teacher without going in depth, very important not to go in depth in the beginning, and go make a full round with all the Arabic and Islamic sciences that I mentioned, memorizing in each metin, in each science, one metin, and making that your foundation, then you have gained a strong, solid foundation in that ilm. And a lot of those ulum will need practice, like Nahu and Usul al-Fiqh and Sarf and so forth. It will need practice, not just learning the rules, but applying them through I'rab or through Sarf or practices, and through Usul al-Fiqh practice and so forth. So preferably when you go through this stage, you will also try to do as many exercises with your teacher as you can. Once you finish a full round of all these sciences, then you go to a level 2, where you will read an intermediate book in all of these sciences, taking it one by one or two at a time, whatever you're able to, but with mastery and focus. Then if you finish the level 2 program, you would go to an advanced level, and you would memorize at the advanced level. So you want to memorize something for a beginner that's short, and something after, if you do that for all the beginner classes, then study the intermediate level without memorizing, then study the advanced level and start memorizing those mutun, and you'll have to prioritize what's most important for you to memorize. Because having ta'sil is based on two main pillars: memorizing and understanding. Memorizing a metin and understanding that metin. Once you do that for any science, then you have a strong foundation in that science. So for example, in Nahu, all the rules of Nahu revolve around the following books. As a beginner, the rules of Nahu would be in Al-Ajrumiya, then Mutammimat Al-Ajrumiya, then Qatr al-Nada, in terms of the rules. And in terms of I'rab and all the special rules of I'rab, you'd find them in Nuqtat al-I'rab by Ibn Hisham, Qawaid al-I'rab by Ibn Hisham, and then the advanced level for Nahu would be Alfiyat ibn Malik, a simple sharh, then an advanced sharh, and then in terms of I'rab, Mughni al-Labib by Ibn Hisham. So this is just looking at Nahu, for example. they're the same goes for all the different fields. They have a step-by-step program, whether it's 3 books or 5 books or 6 books, that will give you the most important details and in a step-by-step manner, where you're getting a little bit the most important things at the beginner level, then more things at the intermediate level, then more things at the advanced level. And then after that, if you want to specialize and become a master of that science, you can now read freely in any of its books. So if you reach that level of Alfiyat ibn Malik in Nahu, you have all the foundations needed to read on in Nahu. Likewise, if you reach that level of Mughni al-Labib. If you reach that level, if you go in fiqh, for example, through أخصر المختصرات, عمدة الفقه, زاد المستقنع, الروض المربع, then you are free now to read the books of the Hanabila, the more advanced books like Al-Kafi and Al-Mughni and Al-Insaf and Al-Furu', and you can become a master in that field. But before that, that level 1, level 2, and level 3 will give you foundations. Now, if you want to know where you are as a student of knowledge, ask yourself where you have reached in all of those sciences. So if you did not study Ajrumiyya in Nahu, then or something at that level, then you're at a level 0 in Nahu. If you study Ajrumiyya, you're at a beginner level. If you studied Mutammin Ajrumiyya and Qatr al-Nada, you're at an intermediate level. If you studied Alfiyat ibn Malik, you're an advanced level in Nahu. Now, for example, say, when I say, yani, you studied, you've memorized, and you've mastered, and you've understood what's to be given at that level. You say the same thing for Sarf and Balagha and Usul al-Fiqh and Mustalah al-Hadith and Fiqh and Hadith and Tafsir and so forth. All of these sciences have a step-by-step book. Alhamdulillah, there's a great website that has gathered all of this information and gathered all the mutun that a student of knowledge is recommended to study in all of the fields, what's to be studied at a beginner level, what's to be studied at an intermediate level, and what's to be studied at an advanced level. It's called Takween al-Rasikhin, TAKW.in. Now it gives you all the audio shuruh and the written shuruh or commentaries of these mutun as well as the actual texts, but it will give you a guideline and a map as to what needs to be done to reach that level of Islamic scholarship. Now the issue is a lot of students who go to the Jamia or to go to study in an Islamic university, they learn Arabic in 2 years quickly, and then they're thrown in the deep end in one of the colleges of either Sharia or Hadith or Quran or Arabic or Da'wah and Usul al-Din, and they're reading advanced books in all of in their specialty. So they're reading advanced books in Sharia and Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh. In Arabic, they're reading advanced books in Balagha and Nahu and so forth. And in Hadith, they're reading advanced books in Mustalah al-Hadith and so forth. And in Aqidah as well as Ulum al-Quran. They're jumping into the deep end, and they will realize that they are not memorizing and they're not having strong foundations in the different Islamic sciences. What that produces, it gives a person keys, it gives a person exposure, it gives a person an idea of what's out there, but it does not give them mastery. It does not give them mastery. So, inshallah, I hope this has helped give an understanding of what Ta'sil requires. And it's a long road, but if a person utilizes his time wisely and doesn't waste time on reading books that do not benefit him in Ta'sil, so they might read a lot of random books that waste their time in Ta'sil, or they might listen to a lot of audio tapes that waste their time in Ta'sil, or they might attend durus or watch things on the internet that do not help them in their Ta'sil. That is the main problem, because they have the time, but they're not utilizing it properly. They're reading the wrong books. They're not wrong books, but they're not helping them in building their foundation in in Sharia or in the Islamic sciences. So if a person utilizes his time properly, has a memorization class that he goes to daily, and always is reading a short commentary of a metin, for example, and checking off as soon as he finishes that metin, it will not take too long. It can take only up to a year or a year and a half or 2 years to finish all the beginner mutun. And it can take 3 years to finish the intermediate mutun, and it can take 5 years to finish the advanced mutun, and that's 5 plus 3 plus 2, which is 10. In 10 years, you can have somebody who is ready to become a scholar in any of the fields that he has reached an advanced level in, and he'll be a very, very strong student of knowledge who understands when he reads, who can choose the stronger opinion, who can derive correct opinion if he follows a system properly, if he has teachers and access to teachers who can help him in the beginning and in his intermediate level and his advanced level. So it is important that he has a memorization program, a short commentary that he reads to a specialized teacher, and he goes to those teachers when he has problems or when he does not understand something, and those teachers should be helping him and guiding him. So you have to tailor your own program to be able to fulfill these goals that I just mentioned, or to fulfill these means that will give you the what is needed to become a scholar bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now a person might say that's too difficult, or it's going to take a long time, or I won't be able to, and so forth. That's fine. Even if you do not reach that level, you know where you stand, and you know what you know, and you know what you do not know. Each science, you know your level. Is it a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, or a specialist? And you always can, if you have strong understanding of the Arabic language, you can summarize to your community and to whoever you're teaching. You can summarize the works of the scholars. Alhamdulillah, a lot of the scholars, especially the contemporary scholars, have broke down and made the Islamic sciences easy, especially mashayikh like Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala. He had the ability to make everything that he teaches very easy to understand. So and there's other scholars as well who did that. So if you never reached a high level in any of the sciences and you need to teach that, you need to teach, for example, aqidah or fiqh or tafsir or hadith, all you have to do is take a book that explains this well, written by a scholar, and summarize that book for the students. But when it comes to questions and answers, and they start asking questions that you do not know, that you have not mastered, that you have not studied, say, I will get back to you, and ask a specialist in the field, and do not give fatwa, and do not give your own opinion, and do not try to pretend to be a scholar when you haven't reached that level. And this is an issue of honesty with yourself and honesty with the Muslim community, that you know your level. There's not a single problem with you reading to them a book or summarizing a book written by scholars and giving them what those scholars say. And if they ask questions that you have not come across and that you do not have a direct answer to, that you refer them to the scholars and that you get them back to the scholars. Inshallah, we'll end with this, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to record lectures on how to memorize the Quran, how to memorize the mutun, how to study fiqh in depth according to one of the four madhahib, and a discussion on studying fiqh through a madhab versus any other method, as well as anything else that will help the students of knowledge in their track of seeking knowledge. Wallahu ta'ala alam. وسبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.